Story 1. The Vanishing Classmate. I was a freshman in college when I returned home for a funeral. It felt surreal stepping into the familiar yet distant world of my high school memories. One particular incident from my senior year came rushing back as I walked past the school library, the place where it all began. Back in my senior year, I often spent my study hall periods in the library, working on assignments for my computer science class. My laptop at home wasn't equipped with the software I needed, so the library computers became my lifeline. On one of those days, I took a seat at one of the two computers running the software. The other computer was already occupied by a boy from my class. He was an enigmatic figure, tall, pale, with jet black hair that curtained one of his eyes. He dressed in dark, grungy clothes, an anti-flag tee, a ripped jean jacket, and heavy Doc Martens. He rarely spoke to anyone, and I never saw him hanging out with friends. As I sat down beside him, his head snapped up and he glared at me with an intensity that sent a chill down my spine. His gaze was unrelenting, like he was dissecting my very soul. I fumbled with my bag to avoid his stare, pretending to look for something. Out of the corner of my eye I saw him smirk, then heard him mumble, "Of course." His voice was low, almost guttural. My heart raced, but I convinced myself he was just muttering to himself, frustrated with his code. To ease the tension, I made a casual comment about our teacher assigning too much homework. He didn't even glance at me, but replied in a chilling monotone, "You want the answers, don't you?" I declined, laughing nervously, though his offer was tempting. His response was a laugh, deep, eerie, and utterly unsettling. I cringed inwardly. When I turned to look at him, he was gone. It was as if he'd vanished into thin air. The only trace of him was a peculiar flash drive left behind. It was a unique design, like a Swiss Army knife with a hidden USB stick. Thinking I'd return it to him in class, I pocketed it. But the next day, he didn't show up. In fact, he never returned to school again. Rumors swirled, but no one seemed to know where he had gone. Years later, during a break from college, I found the flash drive in my room. Out of curiosity, I plugged it into my laptop. The files were innocuous at first: assignments, music, essays. But then I stumbled upon a folder filled with unsettling photos. Emergency escape plans for our school, cryptic notes, and a picture of me taken without my knowledge. Chills ran down my spine as I stared at the screen. There was a document titled "Rest in Peace," but it was blank. What haunted me most was the realization that he'd been watching me closer than I'd ever imagined. Story 2. The Basement Apparition. When I was 12, my best friend Sophie and I were convinced we could be ghost hunters. It started with binge-watching paranormal investigation shows and quickly escalated to trying out investigations in our homes with whatever tools we could scrounge up. Flashlights, old tape recorders, even my dad's camcorder from the early 2000s. One night during a sleepover at my house, we decided to explore the basement. It was the perfect setting for our ghostly adventures. My house was over a century old, and the basement always had this eerie, unwelcoming feel to it. It was divided into 3 rooms, a cluttered storage space, the laundry room, and a tiny, windowless 3rd room that none of us ever used. My mom said it used to be a coal cellar, but it always gave me the creeps. Armed with the camcorder and Sophie's flip phone, we made our way downstairs. The air felt heavier with each step, and the dim, flickering light bulb only added to the tension. We started asking the usual ghost hunting questions, calling out into the silence. "Is anyone here?" Sophie asked, her voice wavering. At first nothing happened, but then a soft thud echoed from the coal cellar. Sophie and I froze. "Probably just the house settling," I whispered, trying to convince both of us, but Sophie wasn't buying it. "Let's check it out," she said, already moving toward the door. The coal cellar was even darker than the rest of the basement. We stepped inside, our flashlights casting long, jittery shadows on the walls. As Sophie panned her flashlight around, I noticed something strange. a faint outline on the far wall, almost like a handprint. I pointed it out, and Sophie leaned closer. That's when the door slammed shut. We both screamed, fumbling for the doorknob, but it wouldn't budge. The air grew icy, and I swear I heard a low whisper right behind us. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the door swung open on its own. We bolted upstairs, our investigation forgotten. Later, when we reviewed the footage, we noticed something we hadn't seen before, a dark, shadowy figure standing in the corner of the coal cellar. Its glowing eyes were fixated on Sophie, and as she moved, its head tilted slightly, as if watching her every step. We never went back to that basement again. Story 3. The State Park Stalker. It was Halloween of my senior year when my friend Ethan and I decided to go for a run at Van Buren State Park. The park was sprawling, with miles of wooded trails, and though it had a bit of a reputation for being a magnet for sketchy people, we'd never encountered anything truly alarming. I arrived at the main parking lot first. The evening was unusually quiet, with only one other car parked nearby, a dented silver sedan. Inside sat a bald man in a dirty hoodie, his eyes fixed on me like a predator sizing up its prey. I shifted uncomfortably, pretending to check my phone, but his stare never wavered. When Ethan finally pulled up, I practically jumped out of my car to meet him. "That guy's been staring at me," I whispered, nodding toward the sedan. Ethan glanced over and shrugged. "Probably just a weirdo. Let's head to the trailhead." As we drove to a different parking lot, the silver sedan followed us, keeping a steady distance. Ethan and I exchanged uneasy glances, but decided to brush it off. Once we hit the trail, the unsettling feeling started to fade. The woods were quiet, the only sounds our shoes crunching on the gravel and the occasional rustle of leaves. About 2 miles in, the sense of unease returned. I kept glancing over my shoulder, certain we were being watched. Then Ethan froze, his face pale. "Did you see that?" he whispered. Turned to where he was pointing and saw it, a figure partially hidden behind a tree. It was the man from the sedan. His face was twisted into a grotesque grin, and his eyes gleamed with malice. He didn't move, just stood there, watching us. "Run!" Ethan hissed, and we took off without a second thought. The sound of branches snapping and leaves crunching behind us confirmed our worst fears. He was following us. We pushed ourselves to the limit, adrenaline fueling our sprint back to the car. When we finally reached the parking lot, the man was gone. But his car was still there, parked ominously in the shadows. We didn't wait to find out what he wanted. To this day, I can't shake the image of his twisted grin or the chilling realization that he'd been following us long before we noticed.